Are you coming upon retirement and realizing that you don't have the nest egg that you hoped you'd have? If so, you're not alone. Over half of Americans feel that they are not financially prepared for retirement, and 38% say that they are significantly unprepared. Sometimes, no matter how diligent we are at creating a financial nest egg, unexpected life events can get us off track. How many women do you know who have had their retirement planning derailed because of a recession or a layoff or a divorce or an illness or caregiving responsibilities, needing to care for a child or a grandchild or aging parents? There are so many life events that can throw us off track through no fault of our own. Our guest today is Kate Phillips. Kate is a financial writer, educator, and a coach, and she shares how she experienced her own financial storm at the time of the 2008 recession when she had just changed jobs and unexpectedly became her father's caregiver. Kate contends that the conventional retirement planning model just isn't working for a lot of people, especially those who don't make enough income to pay for their expenses and max out their 401ks, as well as those who have unexpected life events that can derail a retirement plan. So join our conversation as Kate shares her financial journey and how she overcame the perfect storm to create a financial nest egg for her retirement. And she shares how she empowers women to overcome unforeseen challenges and build a resilient financial future. So I hope you will enjoy my conversation with Kate Phillips. Welcome to Retire Your Limits, the podcast for women who are ready to rewrite the rule books and redefine what it means to retire. I am your host, Gayla Beyer, nurse practitioner turned wellness coach for retiring women. Planning this next chapter of our lives can be overwhelming. At least I know it was for me. This podcast is about putting you first, challenging the norms, and unlocking what's possible for you as you step into this new era of retirement. So ready to retire your limits? Let's dive in. Hi, Kate. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Gayla. It is such a pleasure to be here today.
Yes, I'm super excited to talk with you about women who are planning their retirement and their options for retirement around their money.
All right. I am ready to dive into this.
Great. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am one of the many Americans that maybe had a plan or thought that they had a plan. There's the saying, man plans, God laughs. It applies to women as well. And so I had a plan. My plan had to do with real estate investing. And I was buying rental homes and, I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 50, Gayla. And then a funny thing happened in my 40s, and it was called the Great Recession. The Great Recession was not so great for me. All of my assets became liabilities in about an 18-month period because all of my real estate fell by about 45%. And I got to learn what it was to really experience all of the things that I had been teaching about money, because I'd been doing workshops for women for years, teaching maybe what we'd call financial literacy as well as money mindset. And I had been teaching about the importance of mindset and gratitude and all these things. And then I got to practice that while I was in the middle of a foreclosure and gave up my coaching business out of utter shame. And I pivoted. I actually pivoted into financial writing. I became a support person in somebody else's business for 11 years, helped write financial books and blogs and a newsletter for up to 7,000 investors every week. And finally, I am reclaiming my own voice in this conversation and from the experience of now living what I call the new retirement paradigm.
I love that. So I was so inspired to hear your story. And I know so many other women, business owners in particular, who had a hit during 2008, during the time of the recession. And the struggle around recovering from that and what that looked like. And you ended up pivoting into writing and to creating educational materials around what you've learned from this experience that you had.
Absolutely. And the Great Recession was very challenging for a lot of people, especially for business owners, especially for certain industries, especially for anybody who was invested in real estate. But there are all kinds of storms that come up. And for me, it was this perfect storm. There was the Great Recession. I had just left, 8.5 years as a realtor, launching what I thought was going to be my next step, but was also becoming my father's caregiver. So a lot of times there is this perfect storm going on where maybe there's disruption in somebody's, finances. There's a divorce. There is, the parent that needs to be taken care of, or you might have your own medical emergency or an emergency with a child. And so there's all these things that happen that just take that plan and just turn it upside down. And then we've got to figure out our plan B or our plan C.
Absolutely. And so when that happens, which it happens often because life is complicated and there are many obstacles, then there's shame and guilt and fear.
Yes, I think it's one of the things that I think is broken about just even how we do money, like the financial services industry. If you are a financial advisor, if you sell investments, life insurance, any of that stuff, you are rewarded for working with the most successful clients, people who are already succeeding. Everybody's looking for that client that already has $500,000 and hoping that they can help them grow it into $1 million. And right now, the average American believes, and I'm not really arguing if we're talking about typical traditional retirement, believes that they're going to need more than $1 million to retire with comfort. And that's just not reality for a lot of Americans. So, I've seen the census data. Your median, not your average, but your median American is, and women tend to be behind men on this significantly, is never going to save more than 6 figures. It's typically under $100,000. So I say that we've got a broken model, and how we tend to have it right now is there is this way that I'm supposed to be doing retirement and I'm failing. That is what people think in their minds. And I think rather than saying you are failing at, quote unquote retirement, maybe the model is broken. Maybe this model is failing us. And it's failing us in so many ways. I think the underlying assumptions of it are to some extent broken. One of Social Security was put in place, which was about 90 years ago during the 1930s. Full retirement age then was 65. And I don't remember what exactly life expectancy was, but in the 90 years that have followed, full retirement age has increased by 2 years from 65 to 67. But life expectancy has increased 17 years. So now we have this model where we're told that you go off to school for 20 years and then perhaps in your early mid 20s, you start doing your career. You're going to work for 40 years, maybe 45 years. And during that time, you're going to save enough. If you're retiring at 65, more and more people are living to age 100 now and beyond. And so we're told that you're just going to live off of your investments and hope that the government doesn't spend all of your Social Security. And that creates a lot of stress in people. Like, oh my gosh, have I saved enough? The biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. And with the model that we are working from, that's a reasonable fear. And even people who have saved multiple millions, they're afraid to spend it, because of all of the unknowns. So I think we've got to start with just admitting that we are just working from a broken model.
Wow. So many important things that you said there. We're living so much longer. Even with the shifts for COVID, we're still living so much longer than generations before us. And this is a huge amount of time, 30 years for some, to decide how they want to spend that and also how to make their money last.
I love that. So if we've got a broken paradigm, so what is the solution? And I get so tired of hearing this because it's always one solution. Max out your 401k, max out your retirement account. And if you're 50 and over, you can contribute $30,000 a year. Well, only 18% of people are doing that because most of them just can't afford to do it. If you're earning 45,000, you're not saving 30,000 of that. Where is this solution coming from? It's coming from this huge, enormous industry, the financial services industry, Wall Street. After the pharmaceutical industry, one of the largest lobbying organizations in terms of giving money to politicians. So this industry shapes the conversation, shapes the media, shapes the laws that are passed. And so max out your 401k really means buy more of our mutual funds. Nervous about not having enough in retirement? We've got the solution for you. Buy more mutual funds. But I think we've got a broken paradigm and we've got to fix the model. And then that sheds light on some new solutions. So rather than thinking about, everybody talks about retirement like it's some event or it's something that magically happens or it's supposed to happen when we're 65 or 67 or some age that matches up with, with Medicare or something like that. And so rather than thinking about retirement as an event, can we think about it as a process that maybe we'll go through several stages, even over some decades, and thinking about switching from this full-time job or career that maybe involves a commute in a cubicle, some corporate politics, if you're really lucky, and going to, part-time, seasonal, flexible work. There's also this underlying assumption, and that I just recently opened my eyes to. I'm going to flash a book on the screen here. This book is a classic. There's so much good stuff in it. Vicki Robin and originally Joe Dominguez helped write the original version, Your Money or Your Life, kind of a classic. And it really talks about looking at money and work from a perspective of life energy. But there is a sneaky underlying assumption that the authors have that I'd like to challenge as much as I do appreciate that book. The sneaky underlying assumption is that work is bad and the smart people, the lucky people, the people who plan, and do all the right things, they are the people that get to quit early. Work is bad and quitting is good. That when we're kids, as soon as we can talk, people start asking us, what are you going to be when you grow up? Like, what career are you going to pick? And then as soon as we start work, we're told, max out your 401k because now that you chose this career, your job is get ready to quit. And, it's not totally wrong because many people, not all, but many people will get to a point where we no longer want to work or we no longer can work because of various reasons. But what I'm seeing, and I think what the data is starting to show, is that the longer people work, the longer they're active, and maybe it's not full time. Maybe it's moving into something new like you have. moving into coaching, into consulting, I'm working on generating passive income streams in the future. I'm growing my total wealth show on YouTube. I am writing books. I've got a book on Amazon already that I wrote with Kim Butler's Perpetual Wealth. It's a book about generational wealth. I'm starting to grow a network marketing income stream. I'm building streams of income that probably will outlive me and will outlast even my desire to work. So I have no desire to quit whatsoever, but I want to prepare myself for when I'm like, I think I'd like to work 6 months on and 6 months off.
Yeah, I really think that you're onto something. And there are a lot of people who work for a while and they find that there is something missing. They're not fulfilled, but they're in a traditional role where you have bosses and reviews and, so you don't really have a lot of freedom around that. And so when you're in that type of a role, how do you reframe this? How do you shift? How do you change this paradigm that we're all, because these people are just hanging on to that retirement, like you said, they're just, they're in their years,
Yep. So a couple responses to that, a couple solutions. One is to think about planting seeds of the future that you want, the future lifestyle, the future income streams. So it may mean starting something, can you spend 10 hours a week doing something that you enjoy?
I love that. But one of the things that comes up for me when I hear you say planting the seeds is there needs to be a level of self-awareness for someone to plant some seeds. If they are so tired from their work and they're not necessarily super happy with it, it's really hard to get the self-awareness to be able to think, what would I like to do? What are my passions? What would be interesting if I didn't do this? And then how could I possibly do that? And that can be challenging to figure out how to find time and space and maybe even some support around that self-awareness.
Yes. And I think it's one of the things that's broken with the current model is that we have it that you're going to go to school and then you're going to work and then you're going to have this, leisure, travel, retirement time. And so it's this very sequential, this very linear sequential model. How can we put all of that in a blender so that instead of having, the learn, then the work, then the retire, we've got lifelong learning. We've got lifelong or as long as we can, contribution. I mean, I'm sort of rephrasing work as contribution.
Yes, and exactly. Yeah.
And it may look like traditional work. It could even look like volunteer work. Sometimes when people have all of their financial ducks in a row, they still really benefit from doing volunteer work. It may look like planting the seeds in some kind of side gig or side business. It may look like a lot of trial and error and experimentation. And what I love to do is give people a lot of options and give them this framework. I call it the 7 levers of the new retirement paradigm, or maybe it's the 7 mileposts of the new retirement roadmap. And so looking at these levers, and then I start to give people lots of options. And it's fun to see these like little light bulb moment going off for people because you're right. They are working. So much of your time and energy is going there. And I love the sabbatical model where, we don't have to work for 40, 45 years straight. We can take some time off, even if it's some time off between jobs or taking an extended vacation, or, maybe it is taking a year off, but just allowing ourselves that time and also space for some intentional reflection. Even if I love taking maybe 2-3 days at the beginning of every year, or sometimes the end of a year, for reflection, for intention setting, for
I do that as well. I've gone on these mini retreats, and I maybe go 4 times a year or maybe more, where I, take some time to get away from my responsibilities, to be reflective and introspective, and it can be very helpful.
absolutely.
It seems like, though, you've created this program to help women to get comfortable with this paradigm shift, because the traditional linear way is not working for over half of us.
This is something Bankrate survey reported on CNBC just in recent weeks. 56% of Americans say they're behind where they should be saving for retirement. So now what do? But first off, I want to actually bust this whole I should max out your 401k, max out your retirement account. They are not what they are cracked up to be. They are some of the most inefficient financial instrument. The average family loses 6 figures to fees, commissions, and costs just in their retirement accounts. So there's a predatory element when we're being told max out your 401k. Again, that really means buy our mutual funds. So this organization, demos.org, they did this. It's a special report maybe about 12 years ago. I don't think the numbers have significantly changed all that much. It was called the Retirement Savings Drain. If you Google Retirement Savings Drain Report, demos, demos.org, you can find it for free. It's very instructive. And according to this report, the average American family is losing $155,000 to the financial services industry in the amount of money that is being drained off of their retirement accounts. So we've got to question not only the old model of retirement as being this model that we should be succeeding at, but even the financial path of how to get there is broken. So 401ks, they are riskier than we know. They are less efficient than we realize. And the options are getting better. The costs are coming down as consumers are earning more and rebelling and demanding, things are improving a little bit, but they also create tax traps. So while we're being told max out your 401k, people who do that, people who really succeed in their investing, and they do build that however many millions of dollars, they are actually creating a future tax trap for themselves, because they were deferring their taxes, and really they were just kicking that tax can down the road. And Uncle Sam's coming for you. Uncle Sam has his hand out. He wants his share. And what I learned in doing the research on these accounts and how the taxation works is that a lot of people, not everybody, if you're lower, we're all told we're going to be in lower tax brackets when we retire. But then as we've grown those accounts, we're going to be paying earned income taxes. We're taxed as earned income. Whereas if we had just put these things in a brokerage account, like not even in a retirement account, we'd be paying, if it's in there for over a year, we'd be paying long-term capital gains, which in a lot of cases would be lower taxation. So Mr. Wall Street, Uncle Sam come together, shake hands. Oh, they've created this magical thing called, qualified retirement plans for your benefit. And you should put as much of your income in there as possible. Now, I don't want to totally knock retirement plans because there are advantages to them. There are definite advantages to them. I think the problem, though, is when that becomes the only thing that people are doing. They put all of their eggs into this one basket that probably is going to have high taxation, has more risk than they know, than they think. And they don't have other assets outside of that. And then all of a sudden, let's say you're age 60 and you're like, I think I'd like to kind of do a pivot. I think I see this new line of work that I'd like to do. I want to go buy some rental homes. I think I'd like to purchase a franchise or I want to start a laundromat and I'm going to hire somebody who's going to run it. So it's just going to be real part-time for me. I mean, these are things that people in their 60s decide they want to do. And then they realize that that all of their money is tied up with these government
can't get
rules
to their
and
money.
regulations.
I have somebody very close to me who has gone through that exact scenario. So
Yeah.
much of what you are saying, though, is going to shake people up because you are shifting a paradigm here of what we're traditionally told.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. And so how do you help people to, and of course, this is a podcast and this is not meant to be financial advice.
Thank you. Yes. This is not financial advice.
How do you help people to get comfortable with this new paradigm? Because many women are going to be uncomfortable when they hear this.
Yes. So I have a program currently called the Retirement Revival. By the time you hear this, it may be called the New Retirement Roadmap. It's all around this big idea called the New Retirement Paradigm. And actually at newretirementparadigm.com, if you want to be in my world and go there, there'll be something for you. You may actually get a copy of an ebook or the first few chapters of the New Retirement Paradigm. I'm working on the ebook and I'm not sure how quickly it will be done, but.
So tell us a little bit about the levers of this program and how you walk women through getting comfortable with this shift and to then explore what their options are.
Perfect. So the first lever or the first milestone out of the 7, and we've really been touching on this all along in this conversation, it's mastering your mindset. And the first step is really letting go of what isn't working, letting go of this old model. And in that process, there may be some grieving. There may be letting go of shame. In our first session, we do a shame clearing process. And then I think the entire process of even going through these steps they all relate to our mindset to one extent or another. And realizing that, and instead of this, I need to have that, that $1 or $1.5 in my retirement account, is embracing new possibilities. And I suggest that we get in touch with our future selves, that we let our future selves guide us into that new world. And so, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time. It really is more about intentionality and making a shift where we're willing, we'll do some journaling exercises and that sort of thing. And I share some of the psychology around your future self. Because it used to be that we assumed and thought that it was our past that determined our present and our past that determines our future. But really, it's the future vision that we have, our future self, what we see, the life that we see ourselves creating and living into. So when we start making those mindset shifts, then we start seeing other possibilities. We start seeing that there are many different potential paths to getting there. But it's all going to start with mindset. That's the first lever. The second lever, the second milestone is going to be increasing our income. Now, we may get to a point where we're decreasing our income, and that's okay. But, we talked earlier about planting the seeds. So what are the future income streams that you want? How do we start to plant those streams of income? So how can we create semi-passive income streams? I've got a whole little kind of mini program that I've released called Income Over 50. And in Income Over 50, that is my whole focus. One of the things I talk about in Income Over 50, I mean, it can be investments inside or outside of a retirement account. Dividend investing is great. I go a lot more in depth into that in my program. It could be annuities. Annuities are often something that, and I'm kind of looking at the traditional world of investments. A lot of people don't know or understand about annuities because maybe the person who is administrating your 401k or your IRA may not even sell that. And so you didn't know that this was an option. And frankly, it's an option that may be better suited for folks who are older, but it's something that we can, plan for,
Yeah.
maybe having that be a sliver, be a stream. But it may be also like something like network marketing. I've got a friend who is 55, and she has earned and she's earned a consistent six figures for like 12 years.
So as far as the levers go, then the first is to change the mindset.
Yes.
Or be really aware of the mindset. And one of the main ways that you and I do this as well is to focus on what you want your future to look and feel like.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the first main piece. And then the second lever is to increase your income. And the way that you increase your income is by planting the seeds of what is possible for you. And you've given us some examples of ways that you can increase your income that you may have never thought about before.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So let's jump to the third one. I call it edit your expenses. You notice we've got master your mindset. We've got increase your income because I really love alliteration. So now we've got edit your expenses. And this is really about questioning what we think that good life, that rich life is going to cost us. And there's a certain way, that you're used to living and you may think that, but to live the life that I enjoy, it's going to cost me $5,000 a month. And then you see what's in your retirement account and you know that there is a big gap. So one of the ways to narrow that gap is to increase your income. But there's another way, which is going to be to edit your expenses, really question. I did this not in a huge way, but in a way that was significant to me. At one point, when I went through my financial storm, I purchased my dream home, near east of Seattle. I was a block away from a lake and a beautiful, community. And oh my goodness, the mortgage that I had on that dream home was little over twice the mortgage that I have now. So since that point in time, and that was the home that I lost in foreclosure when everything blew up. I lost that home in foreclosure, went back to renting for 8.5 years. And then I got clear on what I wanted my budget to look like. And I started exploring, and it didn't happen right away. I looked in neighborhoods for more than a year that I did not buy. It took well over a year for me to find what felt like the right fit. And when I found the right fit, I was just like, bingo, this is it. And so it's a smaller home. It's, I guess, a more humble home. I don't have a huge yard to mow. I'm in a whole new community, whole new lifestyle.
Yeah.
You could not pay me to move back to the city. And I lived in Seattle proper, like, West Seattle actually for, a couple of decades. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it when I was there, but I won't move back. I love my new lifestyle. My expenses are less. But, looking beyond just my own solution, it may include moving abroad. I have friends that have moved abroad.
Yeah, I love this because these levers do build on each other. I can see how they build on each other. So, in order to be able to determine what is important as far as possessions and where we want to live, there needs to be a level of awareness, again, that you get from evaluating your mindset and thinking about the future and what you value, because these things do change over time. So, where we wanted to live 10 years ago can be completely different than what really resonates with us now. And if we're not popping our head up and looking around and starting to think about what we really want, we may not even recognize that. I really want to be in a
Yes.
different environment, or financially, this doesn't make sense for me, which is what I'm hearing from you. So,
Yes.
I love how that builds. And
And
I don't know that you can figure out how to trim your expenses or evaluate your expenses if you haven't first explored what's really important to you now.
Yes. And I talk about soul aligned spending. I've got a framework of it's just really designed to get people's minds shifting around their expenses. Anybody, any kind of financial coach is going to tell you this, you've got to separate out your needs and wants. But I like to flip things on their head a little bit. And so rather than everything being about restriction and how do we save more, um, I will ask people to consider what is it that you want to spend more on and what are your dreams and true desires? Because when we realize our dreams and true desires, sometimes that helps us define the places where we're spending money on things that really are not the most important to us. Maybe we're maintaining a big home when we secretly wish that we could be traveling more. Or we're living in a big city where some other location would actually be more nurturing for us.
So just to kind of a recap here, we've talked about the first 3 levers, and I know you said that there are 7. Briefly, what are the other 4 levers? And then tell us a little bit more about how we can find you, learn more about you.
Thanks so much, Kayla. The fourth lever, savings and security. So savings is different from investing. And I put savings and security together because we have to think about what we want the money to do for us when we think about being safe. It might include insurance. It might include other things. The next lever is invest with intention, rather than just letting your 401k administrator tell you what your investments are going to be. What do you want to invest in? And it doesn't have to be within the confines of a retirement account. It may be, real estate investing there are many advantages to that and many different ways to do it, even if you don't want to deal with tenants, termites, and what is there's 3 T's anyway, even if you don't want to deal with being a landlord in the traditional sense. The next lever is about health and wealth. And no, there's no alliteration, but there's rhyming. Health is wealth. And I know your program really goes deep diving into that, because when we maximize our health, we also maximize our ability to stay active, to keep earning, especially if it's doing something that doesn't feel like work, which is what I recommend. And then the last one is, I call it aligned life design. And it is about designing work and a life that you don't want to retire from. And it is looking at your life, not as retirement as an event, but, as this whole process. We have very successful people in our society who don't need to work another day in their life.
So, in order for us to and think about what we want for our future, we need to be feeling healthy and strong, because that is going to shift how we look at our future.
Absolutely.
I do love this because it can help everybody create a different paradigm for themselves. And so, Kate, I'm so grateful that you are here today. I loved hearing about your work. Again, tell us where we can find you, and I'll also put your contact information in the show notes.
Yes. And before I do that, I want to give a shout out to your YouTube channel, to your podcast, so people that follow me can find you. You are Gayla Beyer, Beyer. And you can be found at Gayla Joy on YouTube. And I think your website is gaylajoywellness.com. Is that?
Yep.
Awesome. Yes.
Yep.
Because what we are doing is definitely synergistic. We share some values, and as well as some of the shifts that we're making in our own lifestyle. And besides the new retirementparadigm.com, you can find me there. And you can also find me Total Wealth Show on YouTube. And I'm very active on Facebook and also Total Wealth Creators group. I'm most active just in my personal profile, and that's facebook.com. You can /the Kate Phillips. I am, accept no substitutes. I am the Kate Phillips. Email address, kate@totalwealthcoaching.com. You can also reach me there.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you, Kate. It was so great to speak with you.
Thank you again, Gayla.
Great.
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kate Phillips. Can you relate to Kate's story of overcoming financial setbacks? Are there specific aspects of her story that resonate with your journey? If so, share with us in the comments below. And if you're finding this podcast helpful, please consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.